Yo, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to be ranking all the fighters from one of my favorite K-dramas, All of Us Are Dead. Without further ado, let's get into it. So firstly, we have the no scaling tier, with Min Eunji at the bottom. This, if you don't know, is a girl that Guinam forced to strip down on the camera. Very wholesome stuff. She just doesn't seem to have any scaling though. All she was shown to do was to get on top of Chongsan, pause, before Soo-hyuk intervened and slammed her against the wardrobe, making her unable to get back up. So her feats are quite underwhelming. And her being a half B is not a good enough argument for her considering her feats are just severely lacking. In this tier we also have Nam Soju, aka Onjo's dad. I know it's weird to see him in a no scaling tier since he seemed to be a beast, dropping zombies left and right, but we have to realize that he doesn't have any scaling to any of the actual fighters, just zombies. He could potentially be very high up though. If I had to guess, I'd say he's maybe above Chongsan, but we unfortunately can't really quantify where he scales to, since like I said, he has no scaling to the other fighters in the show. But again, this doesn't necessarily make him one of the worst in the verse, rather it just makes him someone who could be very high up, but we don't really know exactly where he scales, so it's safe to just put him in a whole no scaling tier. So in D tier, we have Park Chung-hoon at the bottom. If you don't know who this guy is, he's one of Guinam's friends, this guy right here. This guy for some reason plays a bully in every show he's in, which is kind of funny to me for some reason. Despite him being Korea's go-to actor when a bully needs to be casted, he completely sucks. The only time we see him fight is when Jin-soo just flattens him in a second without him being able to put up a fight. So naturally he would just be at the bottom since all we see him do is get his face torn off by the school nurse and get negged by Jin-soo. Above him we have this other bully, Soon Myung-hwan. He's also pretty trash but slightly less horrendous than Chang-hoon, as when he fought Jin-soo he was able to land a kick on him and wrestle him temporarily, whereas Chang-hoon just got basically one-shotted and couldn't even land a hit. At the top of this tier though we have Yi Jin-soo. This is the kid who Guinam and the other bullies were harassing at the start. He seems to be some kind of half-B I guess, as he was shown to have pretty similar recovery abilities to Guinam when he became a half-B. Despite this though, he's pretty weak, as Guinam was just making him his bitch for like 2 minutes straight. In his defense though, he was able to neg Park Chung-hoon and he was able to withstand both a front kick and an umbrella attack from Sun Myung-hwan, forcing Guinam to intervene. The reason this tier is so low is because they don't really have any scaling to anyone else in the verse, and it may seem that they low scaled to Guinam, but this is just not the case since Guinam literally destroyed Jin-soo the whole time. Like, it's to the point where Jin-soo just doesn't even really scale to him at all. And as for the other two, they just scale under Jin-soo anyway, so these three have some of the worst feats in the series. Now in C tier we have Oh Jong-yong at the bottom. The three boys in this tier are pretty relative and have vague feats. I put Oh Jong-yong at the bottom though because he has glasses, so he's a nerd, so yeah, fuck him. I did initially think he could be above the other two because in the roof fight in episode 9, if you pay attention, you can actually see Jong-yong picking up a plank of wood and hitting Guinam in the head with it. While it wasn't very effective, it was a feat of battle IQ which the other two don't have. But then again, you could just argue that the only reason he got the opportunity to use that wooden plank in the first place is because he was already next to it when the others were fighting Guinam, as he was the only one who went over to help Soo-hyuk when Guinam launched him into some chairs with a kick. So nothing impressive. Plus, once again, and also more importantly, he's a nerd. Above him would be Jang Woo-jin. He doesn't do anything impressive either, but he's not a nerd, so he'd scale above obviously. And at the top of this list would be Yang Dae-soo, aka the fat guy. This guy, just like the others, isn't shown to be very impressive and has quite vague feats, but he did manage to utilize his strength in episode 2 against the zombies. So just because of his fat boy strength, I'll put him at the top of this tier, but you know, they're all kind of relative. Also, all the stuff I said about Jong-yong being the weakest because he's a nerd was just a joke. Not that I'm apologizing to any nerds I offended or anything, I couldn't care less if I did. Rather, it's just a pretty stupid way to rank fighters. I just put them in this order because they're all shown to be basically the same anyway, and I don't even know why I wasted a few minutes of my life trying to find a difference between these literal side characters. But yeah, these guys are basically all equal. You can rank them in whatever order you like, though I do think Dae-soo is probably the best due to his strength, but I just couldn't care less. I'm just gonna move on because I'm wasting way too much time with these semi-featless side characters, and I need to get a life. Now in B tier we have episode 5 Chong-san at the bottom. The reason Chong-san is above the previous tier is because he was able to land a hit on half-B Guinam in the roof fight in episode 9. Whereas, despite Guinam focusing less on them, Woojin, Dae-soo and Jong-yong weren't able to land any hits on Guinam. Chong-san was also able to fight on par with Guinam and press him quite a bit, but Guinam as a human would scale above. The reason he's above is because he did safely beat up Chong-san, as he was on the verge of choking him to death, with Chongsan being only able to get the win because he stabbed Guinam in the eye with his phone. People seem to for some reason underestimate human Guinam and say that he's only good because he got zombified or whatever, but he's actually a very good fighter. He straight up beat Chongsan. He's shown multiple times to be able to fight off multiple zombies, and even when he is a half B, he's shown to not be too reliant on his newly attained brute strength, as he is occasionally seen dodging and blocking people's attacks. The guy's not bad. He's certainly not the skillless brute that everyone thinks he is for some reason. Chongsan in episode 11, however, would scale above human form Guinam. The reason for this is that we see Chongsan fight half B Guinam in episode 9, and he's able to land only one hit. However, in episode 11, we see Chongsan fight Guinam again, and this time he's able to actually land 2 hits, despite the fight being a direct one-on-one this time. The reason I bring this up is because episode 9 Chongsan should be the same as his episode 5 self, as there's no proof he improved, but a few episodes later he is shown to outperform that version of himself, and we know episode 5 Chongsan, who I just explained is the same as his episode 9 self, was relative to Guinam, so it would make sense that a stronger version of Chongsan would be able to defeat this version of Guinam, as this version of Guinam was just barely above a weaker Chongsan. Now in 8 we have my girlfriend, I mean Tue Namra, at the bottom. Namra, when she became a half B, has some very impressive feats, and before a few people I know start calling me biased, shut up by the way, I'm not. Let me just at least give a few arguments for why Namra is as high as she is, even above Chongsan, which is probably gonna piss some people off. When Chongsan fought Guinam in episode 9, he got thrown to the ground instantly and would have likely gotten his eye gouged out had Soo-hyuk not intervened. And when Chongsan had a chance to recover, all he did was land a single hit, and that one hit that Chongsan even did land did literally no damage. Like, look at the way Guinam just tanks this. Whereas even the slap from Namra made Guinam's head turn and made him stumble back slightly. So already this shows Namra is physically stronger. She is also more durable as she was able to tank multiple hits and still cling on to Guinam. Not only did one of Namra's hits do more damage than Chongsan's one hit, but Namra also landed more hits. She landed 2 hits on Guinam and threw him onto the ground, and she also was the one who threw him off the roof. She's basically the reason they won in the first place. In conclusion, Namra was shown to be both physically stronger and more durable than Chongsan, and she landed more attacks on Guinam and was more effective against Guinam than Chongsan was. While Chongsan does arguably improve later, it's only a slight difference, and it's unlikely he would upscale Namra due to the fact that she is shown to perform significantly better than Ymir. And also, only an episode before the roof fight, Namra also choked Guinam and threw him down the stairs, rescuing Chongsan from him. But to be honest, this argument is kind of a hit or miss because Namra did kind of catch Guinam off guard there. But either way, because of all the things I mentioned beforehand, I think it's safe to say that Namra is above Chongsan, and a good bit above also. Damn, maybe I'll get a message back now. Above Namra though would be Soo-hyuk. Soo-hyuk, just like Namra, would scale above Chongsan due to the fact that when he fought Guinam when he was zombified, Guinam stated that Soo-hyuk was a better fighter than Guinam before he became a half-B.
네가 나보다 싸움 잘했으니까. 근데 지금은 그럼 안 되지.
And we know that Guinam before he became a half-B was shown to defeat Chongsan. Therefore, Soo-hyuk would also scale above Chongsan, as well as a fully human version of Guinam. I'll just put some chain scaling here to clarify what I mean. He would also scale above Namra though, as he was shown to do slightly better against Guinam. In the roof fight in episode 9, Soo-hyuk was able to land a total of 8 attacks, not including off-guard attacks, on Guinam. Whereas Namra landed only 2 hits and threw Guinam twice. Soo-hyuk was also shown to do more damage as he was able to make Guinam spit out blood, and at some point made Guinam bend over from his attacks. Pause. Whereas Namra didn't seem to hurt Guinam too much. And yes, while Namra did last longer against Guinam, there's a few things to take into account here. Namra wasn't necessarily throwing attacks like Guinam the whole time. She was more so just stalling Guinam and not letting go of him and just being a pest, honestly. Whereas Soo-hyuk was always combating and putting up more of a fight. He was always attacking. And on top of that, Guinam would stall by talking to her mid-fight, making their battle last longer than it should have.
너 냄새 좋다. 어? 너랑 나랑 같은 변이야. 맡아봐. 맡아봐.
뭐.
Whereas with Suhyok, he wouldn't mess around and instead he would fight through the entire encounter. So in conclusion, Suhyok landed both stronger attacks and more attacks than Namra did, despite Guinam evidently trying harder against him. So with all these factors taken into account, I think it's safe to say that Suhyok is better than Namra. And now in a whole tier by himself, we have the GOAT himself, Guinam, but as a half-B. Guinam is just hands down the best fighter in the series by far. He's shown to be able to combat all of the students at the same time.
니들 다 죽어야겠다.
He was already a solid fighter and gave Chongsan a run for his money, and would have likely killed him had Chongsan not been able to use a weapon on him. But then he got superhuman strength when he became a half-B, surpassing fighters as good as Suhyok, who he beat multiple times with relative ease, and I've already explained why Suhyok scales above everyone else in the show. In the finale, despite being stabbed and being hit by a brick, he was still able to get the upper hand on Chongsan. The students are only ever able to really beat him if they can throw him out of a window or off a building or something like that. But other than that, he is shown to just straight up scale above anyone in a 1v1 fight, to the point where we don't even know if the students would have beaten him altogether had they not been on the school roof, which allowed them to throw him off. So in conclusion, Guinam is just the GOAT of the show.